Welcome to Beyond Normal Days. I'm your host, Guillermo. This is episode 31 featuring False Witness. False Witness is a DJ and music producer based in Berlin, Germany, who has developed their sound and contributed to the electronic music landscape for almost a decade now. In this episode, you will get to hear about his musical upbringing, being a part of the New York party circuit, and moving to Germany. False Witness also talks about the initial experience with the Kunk Collective formed in Massachusetts and how throughout the years of hard work, he has matured and blossomed to the artist they are now. Marco talks about Emissions Recordings, Bossa Nova Civic Club, Mood Ring, Core Agency under the Possession Team, and more. Make sure to check out the newest record, Third Space, available on the False Witness Bandcamp. Follow False Witness on Instagram and Twitter at false_witness. Support the Bandcamp at false-witness as well. Follow Beyond Normal on Twitter at beyondnormal_, and on Instagram and Facebook at Beyond Normal Official. Thank you for tuning in, and now please welcome False Witness. This is Beyond Normal Days, and today I'm sitting down with the one and only False Witness. How are you?
Hey, how's it going?
I'm doing good. Thank you for being on my podcast. I'm so glad I'm able to do this.
Yeah, no, thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
So yeah, let's get into it. So let the listeners where you're from.
Okay, so I'm from Boston, Massachusetts. I grew up there. I moved to New York in 2014. I spent a lot of time there for 5 years. I was doing the New York party circuit for a minute bit. And then in 2019, I moved to Berlin, Germany, and now that's where I'm currently based.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's where I'm at right now.
Nice. And I like, getting to know people, what their family was playing, when they, were growing up. So
Yeah.
what was your musical upbringing with your family and all that stuff?
Surprisingly, not very musical. I don't think my family listened to a lot of music. My mom probably didn't have any singular record that she liked.
Okay.
She just kind of listened to whatever was on the radio. And my dad had some really strange taste in music. In my opinion, when I was growing up, it's a really bipolar experience. He really liked Linkin Park for 1 week and then hated it, and then he really liked ABBA for a week and then hated it, and then or Led Zeppelin or Queen or something. It just he went through fits, most of the music stuff that I reference now when I was younger is more my sister who introduced me to Euro pop bands like The Real McCoy, Prodigy, the Fatherland.
Yeah.
And then as I got older, I discovered Daft Punk and Chemical Brothers and stuff like that. So I really that's sort of where I got my beginnings in electronic music.
And was that during high school, or what was being played? What was your musical background in high school? Because high school, it's a pivotal moment, in people discovering oneself and everything.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, in high school, I was already going to raves. I think.
Oh shit! Nice.
Yeah. I was sneaking out of my parents' house by 13 to go to raves in Western Mass. So there was a club called the Asylum that I would sneak out to that was 16 plus.
Oh, okay.
And I had a fake ID because I was 13, and it was the shittiest fake ID. So, but yeah, they used to have raves there. I would see hard techno DJs Chris Liberator, Shy Effects, in the Jungle Room or something, and or happy hardcore DJs and stuff.
Yeah.
It was a lot of different styles of music. And then there was another place called the Municipal Cafe in Hartford, Connecticut that I would also sneak out to.
Okay.
And that's where I first heard Joey Beltram and stuff like that.
Oh shit! So at 13, how would you describe just I guess the worldwide what was, because right now techno, house, you can see different things, but you mentioned jungle. I know jungle was very important and very popular, I guess, back in the years and everything as well too.
Yeah, jungle had its moment. I knew a lot of ravers back then who were really into AK-1200 or Diesel Boy or Dara. They did a Planet of the Drums type tour. Yeah, there was a record company called Moonshine that I also used to listen to a lot, and that was they had a whole different types of artists work with them. But I remember DJ Kioki was actually one of the on the roster.
From Club Kids. Right?
Yeah.
So you've seen him?
I've never seen him perform, but he I knew that he was part of that crew, and they did play in Massachusetts a lot. There were raves everywhere in the western part of the state.
Because Club Kids, they were East Coast, right? Or,
yeah, that phenomena was New York City.
New York City,
specifically. Yeah.
I remember watching the movie and then going on the internet and trying to see and then looking up the actual DJ Kioki, and then seeing a bunch of flyers, that he was on. I'm like, oh, dude, so he was actually doing a bunch of raves and other stuff just outside of the whole Club Kid scene and everything.
Right. Yeah. I think I was a little too young to understand or really want or be in the Club Kid scene. I had only gone to New York maybe once or twice. But music wise, around the time that the movie came out, I was really into Electroclash, because I think that it was 2001 and that style of music was really popular. So I remember being interested in Felix the House Cat, and his the Kittens and the Glitz album had come out. It was a huge deal for me.
Yeah.
So that was high school essentially. I was really outcast kind of kid, because no one in my school knew what that music was.
You see, and that's the thing though, when I talk about people who have been in the scene or just in general being into electronic music, when they talk about, say, being into electronic music while in high school, it's always, outcast, it's not the popular kids. It's not like, so at that time you would say raving wasn't like a very like mainstream thing, of course, right?
No,
Yeah,
no,
yeah, yeah.
especially not where I grew up. Like where I grew up, like I grew up in a really strong Puerto Rican and Dominican household, not household, but like neighborhood.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
My family's from Guatemala, but like
Oh, okay, okay.
but everything around me was like Dominican, Puerto Rican. So I had a lot of that kind of like Caribbean influence. So a lot of reggaeton, a lot of dembow, and
Nice.
a lot of hip hop. So it's like
Yeah.
that was the main sort of music that like reached like that era's youth, and that was cool too. I really enjoyed it, but it was something that I knew that like I had other interests. I think like the first thing I ever did as a DJ was I got like a program on this old PC computer called Mixmeister, and I was trying to blend one of those electro class tracks with like a reggaeton track by DJ Blast. So I was like trying to, and it didn't work, and I didn't understand what BPMs were at the time. So I was like, why don't they fit? They fit in my head, but they don't fit on the computer.
Oh wow, wow,
Yeah.
that's clean. It's funny how you say that because I feel like everybody has this story of like getting into DJ and it's maybe like a program on the computer or something. Not sure if you heard of virtual DJ.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
That was my introduction to virtual DJing. And then you're in your room trying to like, how you said, blend these tracks, blend something, or just at that time, you don't even know if it sounds like ass or not, or maybe you do know, but that's tight. That's cool. But I was gonna ask you, how you said that your sister was maybe like an important influence in musical upbringing. Were you going with her to the like raves and anything like
No,
that?
she would
She
never
not?
take me.
Oh,
No,
no.
no, she was off doing her own thing. She was like 7, 8 years older than me.
Okay.
So by the time that I was like really doing that, she was already getting ready to go to college.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And so she was like, at the clubs in Boston. She was a club promoter for a short period of time as well. She dated the DJ, but she was off having like, her own adventures.
Yeah,
And like,
yeah,
so I was still the younger brother, so I wasn't allowed to join her. So I went off and had my own. So
Okay. And do you have any younger siblings?
yeah, I have a
Any-
younger brother as well.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So my younger brother probably didn't get into electronic music the way I did, but like that was my form of rebelling.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's like a really
Yeah.
conservative, Hispanic household.
Yeah, no,
like
that- yeah.
Latinx household.
Yeah, I've full-blooded Mexican. My parents are well, grew up with mom and everything, so it wasn't really like, had that freedom. Even when there was all ages clubs, in San Bernardino and also LA, the arena and the club dance. I didn't get to go to. I never attended because my mom wasn't gonna drop me off and none of those things.
Right.
And I didn't have other friends that were attending. I was into skateboarding, but that was that. And then little by little after senior year of high school, having a little bit more freedom and then being able to attend these parties and these raves and blah blah blah. But yeah, that's cool. But how did you get into, or how did you get introduced? Oh, okay, Mixmeister.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, and then from there, when did you take it a little bit, or when did you start understanding BPMs? Or
Yeah, I mean, like that was like the first initial attempts. Like, I was always making like mix CDs and stuff, but like all over the place between like, burning CDs when you like had to burn CDs before like I was just at the edge of like tapes and stuff and tape culture. So, and like in CDs. So
Came in, yeah,
CDs
yeah.
came in, they were the new thing. So I was doing those, but I didn't understand how to blend stuff. I just knew that there was like, a mood or something that needed to be put together. But then probably around like 14, 15, things got kind of strained in my family's house. So I had to leave. Yeah, it was like the typical gay kid kicked out kind of story.
Okay.
Yeah. And it wasn't pleasant, but it was like a survival thing. So music and just outside influences, they all had to come to a stop.
Okay.
And so it's like everything just stopped. So by the time I got shit together and I was like pretty independent by like 18, 19 years old, I started going to community college, and then I got accepted into like a pharmacy program, and I was like trying to study to be a pharmacist or something. But that didn't work out. Like I tried, but my heart wasn't in it. And I was, at that point, I had already downloaded Tractor. I was like playing with music and like, I met a team of people in Boston who ended up forming the Kunk Artist Collective, which was Rizla, Batty Jack, Micah, and then eventually we would add other members as well into the fold, like Shy Boy. But the original group in Boston, like they were like these DJs who were throwing events in this club called Zuzu, and I went for the first time, and I was just kind of blown away at like the blends and the type of music that I was listening to. So eventually I would send them my tracks, like, or like the little edits and cuts that I was trying to make. And they were like, you're part of the team. We need to kind of put stuff together now.
So you were even messing around with the production at that time too? Like
Yeah. It started like together as well. Like I
Oh.
downloaded Logic first, like a bootleg copy of Logic. And I was trying to figure out how that worked. I tried Ableton for the first time and then it just didn't click with me. But I noticed that a lot of other producers were using it, especially like techno producers and electronic music producers were using Ableton almost exclusively. So I like forced myself to learn how to use it.
And you're currently using Ableton.
Yeah.
Hey, like I forced myself.
Yeah,
And quick side note, I relate to you when you said that you were trying to be a pharmacist. You know, and you're like, I tried it, but my heart wasn't in it. That was me going into engineering school. You know, like I was doing the classes, I was doing it, but I'm just like, maybe sooner or later I'll get into it. You know, yeah. But I feel like I see this is why I like doing these interviews. You know, and these conversations because it gives the listeners a perspective into like, you know, your journey of how it is. You know, like everything you've been doing. You know, to be the person that you are right now as well too.
Yeah. It's like doing something when you're that age is like you're like forced to think about the rest of your life and like what you want to do. And it's really unfair to put that much pressure on someone who's 18 or 19, you know, like, and still figuring it out. I don't really think I really had any really true inkling about making music like a full-time thing or the arts a full-time thing until I was 25. And that really didn't even kick off until maybe like just before the pandemic. So I've been at this for such a long time, but seeing the fruits of my labor has taken like almost 10 years, about 10. It'll be 10 years next year that I started doing this because I started like really taking music seriously in 2012.
Okay.
So, but yeah, it's just so unfair to kids who are just trying to figure out what it is that they like and what it is that they're passionate about. And then forcing them into careers that they may not necessarily like, you know?
And then sometimes they wouldn't even have the opportunity to actually really experiment or, you know, dabble in something that they actually like, you know, maybe because they're so forced into that sector of like, okay, trying to like, hey, I have to get this, I have to learn this, I have to master this, and don't even have the time to go explore something else. But
that's an America thing too. Like, I feel like a lot of American youth are pressured being like, go to college for something like maybe STEM related, like nothing liberal arts, nothing like too like the values of America are all about just making money and pushing and hard to make as much money as possible, and then buy shit you don't need, you know.
Yes. Oh yes.
And then that's it. That's the end of your life, you know. Like, and it's really fucked up because you don't let anyone develop any kind of passion or desire or thing outside of that make money mode, and that it's kind of poisonous, you know.
That's just, literally. I think I said like, you know, STEM related, like engineering, you know, and I'm like, that's not what I want to do. But no, but but going back to your producing, you know, you got Logic. Is it later that you got into Ableton, or at that moment too, you're like, no, I'm gonna learn Ableton and that's what I'm gonna.
Yeah, no, I was really trying hard with Logic, and I think just like that DAW made sense. Like, intuitively, like I understood what I was doing with it. Ableton did not come to me intuitively. I had to watch by learning from others. Like I had to watch others use it for me to really understand how it worked.
Okay. Also, Logic was a little bit more user friendly on your end.
On my end, I feel like some people are like one or the other. They're really into Fruity Loops or they're really into like Reason or something. And one programmer or another tries. You try it and it clicks with you. Ableton was something that I had to learn with Rizla, because when we worked on like a dual EP for like Disc Magazine, like back in 2013, like he was working in Ableton exclusively. And so I was like, all right, I need to learn this in order to be able to share project files.
Yeah. Is it hard to go from like Logic to Ableton? And
it's just a lot of bouncing down like wave files and then trading and just making sure that things still click when
instead of Ableton, what do you go? Collect all and save and just send the file to somebody. Right.
But even then, it like I feel like some stuff gets lost in the mix when you're like, it's better to like produce.
Just in like, one file, like just one,
exactly. Just to work with one person who's right next to you in a really cool studio that you can just hear everything. Like when I work with Shy Boy, that's the goal, is to kind of just be in the same room and just like mash it and then it's done, you know?
Yeah. No. And then we'll get into that, you know, that False Boy project. Oh man, the tracks that y'all produce is crazy. Like it's dope. But just during as well too. I was listening to to your music on the way over here just to kind of get in the mood and everything.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, let's talk about your sound, because you developed a sound. You know, you have developed a vibe that you can tell that it's your music. It's you know,
Yeah.
So but going from Tractor, like when did you start getting a little bit more, I guess, or playing parties or events?
Yeah, so I used to DJ at like these basement shows, and then just wherever I could find a booking, you know.
Okay.
The style of music that I was DJing and the things that I was trying to do wasn't really well accepted in the Boston community, especially like in there was like a more emphasis towards like minimal techno,
Okay.
and like
Yeah.
and minimal house and like very like or deep house or whatever, and like anything that sort of was outside of that box was looked down upon. So I didn't really like gel very well with like the local Boston DJ community. Only like me and the people who were DJing at New Life in at Zuzu's, which was, you know, Kunk. Like when we clicked, it's because we were all outcasts. So, you know, it's like we were all queer, people of color, really invested in like sort of what people call social justice now. It was. It wasn't a twisted word like it is now, you know.
Now it has so much other
it has a lot of like
it
has a lot of different connotations that come with it now, and some of them not pleasant, and like before social justice actually meant something. It was like about like setting the bar of equality kind of even because of how grossly unequal like a place like Boston is, you know. It is a really segregated, very white town, you know. So yeah, so we were all like playing these shows and parties, and then we saw like things like Ghetto Gothic and Venus X playing like in New York City, and we like kind of took all of our knowledge of that scene and applied it to what we were doing in Boston. And you know, it would have been something like to kind of move towards that direction eventually, and we all moved to New York City.
Exactly.
So, yeah, we just saw that we couldn't grow in Boston because what we were doing wasn't respected. So we were like, well, fuck it, we're just gonna all go to New York, and so one by one we all did.
Oh, okay. And then at the end, all of you from that collective are in New York? Or
so Micah moved to Oakland first, and then came back to New York. But yeah, we all moved to New York City, and at that point was like when I was the last one. So in 2014, and that's like, you know, Ghetto Gothic was at its peak, it's at its major height, and so it's like when I think about that, like I was just like, oh, this makes so much more sense than what I was doing in Boston.
And would you say like, well, like what was the music that you were playing in Boston that wasn't accepted, or was it still a little bit more harder techno, or just kind of more harder than the minimal? Because minimal can kind of, you know.
Like for me, minimal was sort of plotting, like it didn't go anywhere, and it was just more of a like a drone or like a ketamine style music. You know, like I just wasn't into it as much, and like I just felt that it was like a little soulless, like it wasn't even like Robert Hood style minimal. It was just like this kind of like generic kind of style of music that it had no energy, it had no flavor. And so I was really aggressive with music in general. So it was like a mix between stuff that I really like Joey Beltram's Energy Flash, or like reggaeton, or Dembo from Dominican Republic, you know, like El Alfa or something, and like trying to find the sweet spot where those things met, you know. And I knew it's like, you look at these records like DJ Blast, Reggaeton Sex stuff, like they're all the same synths that were being used to like produce like Belgian New Beat, you know. So it's like there was a common thread. Yeah, the programs were all the same. It's just like the constructions and the compositions were different. But I really wanted to find that sort of sweet spot. So a lot of the early records that I made were trying to reference that, like trying to reference like what I was coming from and the style of music that I really enjoyed, which was like Jersey Club and like Baltimore Club and techno, and like kind of like trying to find where those things fit. So like one of my first records, Machina, was like trying to do that. It just maybe a little like heavy-handedly, but yeah, it was like one of the first attempts.
And when would you say that you felt comfortable and like, okay, I can release music?
That never happened.
Oh, no,
that never happened.
You just started releasing like tracks,
I never felt comfortable releasing anything, but it's like it's like you have to.
Even to this day, no?
Yeah, no. Even to this day, I'm like still struggling because I was just like, it's just not good enough. But I think that's like an artist thing. Like,
You know how that the cliche thing to say that one is the most, you know.
Yeah.
The hardest critic.
I've had really good advice been given to me in terms of like production. Like it's like if you're stuck on a song, go to the master channel, put an EQ on it, and watch. And just watch the EQ jump up and down.
Okay,
and
yeah,
see
yeah,
what's happening with the track, like as all the way through. If it's making like 4 like significant peaks, like it's really hitting the bass, it's really hitting like the mids, and it's really hitting the highs, and it has like something else going for it, you're done. Just move on.
Kyle Geiger, he did that because during the pandemic, he was doing these like tutorial videos, like teaching how to do music production. And one of the videos was like, something that I kind of like to do as well too. Put an EQ on the master.
Oh, he's awesome.
And he's like, you can kind of see what needs, like to work on and everything.
Yeah, what needs more polish, what needs a little bit more massaging. I was like, oh, damn,
that's clean,
Yeah, for me, like that's like when I'm totally stuck and I don't know how to finish a song or something, and like, or I'll know what needs to be there, but I don't know like what frequency range it needs to be so I can't I can't think about it in my head, so I have to watch it visually and like see it, and then I'm like, okay, that makes sense.
Oh, that's clean. So a little bit more like in New York. How was the networking in New York specifically?
Being in New York taught me a lot about techno and like the way that it should feel. When I like first really got to like be comfortable and deciding to say that like my music is techno and not just like deconstructed club or something, like I knew like none of these genre things fit.
Yeah.
And so eventually I was like, I think in 2018 I released a record that I was just like, I'm just gonna call it techno and just run with that, because I was like, this is where I feel the most comfortable. And and like that was inspired by like going to parties in New York City that actually were like techno nights. So Unter was a big one for me, and I was just like, I'm like, I can't believe I see people who look like me. I can't believe I see like queer people and like black people. I see everyone mixing together, you know? And that was the kind of unity that on the dance floor that I really craved, I wanted those barriers broken down. Like I didn't want to be playing for an audience of like a sea of like white men,
Yeah. And I think that's the original, philosophy of, Mike Banks, has always talked about, how it's, you see, brown, black, nerds, cholos, like anything just all at once, he says it's, it causes, what was it? He's like, causes disorder, but it's that's not what society wants it to be, So breaking down those barriers is what initially, like, the origins of all this, so, you experiencing that makes it like, okay, this is where I want to be. This is what I want to, do. It's solidified maybe your journey or your goal or your...
Yeah, it makes sense politically too. It's just like, it's if you are constantly on a dance floor that is multi-generational, multiracial, and diverse, and you're more comfortable being around people who don't look like you. Maybe when you step out of the club, you'll be more politically minded to be empathetic to their cause, because you were just partying with them, And then like, that developing that sort of like race and class consciousness is important, but it's like that kind of conversation doesn't happen in the club because it's loud. It should happen elsewhere. But but if you're booking like a club of all white guys, or and you're gonna attract an all white audience, so it's like so you have to speak about your politic, and that has to reflect in the party itself as well.
Do you remember the time or the moment where you discovered that house and techno is like a black or origins, like it was created by black people, and also like it's thanks to the queer gay community as well. So do you remember that moment or no?
I don't know if I remember that, but I know that was definitely part of like my re-education. I know, because I think that a lot of kids, depending on what part of the country they come from, they have a skewed understanding of like class and race. And sometimes it's it's hard to get a kid from Massachusetts who comes from like a really Caribbean community to understand what Detroit is like, because two totally different places, similar struggles, but two totally different places, two totally different upbringings.
Yeah.
It's helpful when you like learn that history through music and stuff. But some people would rather just not look at that, and it's really frustrating to constantly feel like you're just like, you have to retell the story over and over and over again, because people will constantly rewrite that history. They'll try to negate it or deny that it happened, and so you get a lot of people on like the internet being like, oh, Kraftwerk invented techno. I was like, No, they didn't.
Yeah.
And it's like it's repetitive and redundant, but you have to constantly keep like emphasizing that Detroit is crucial and critical place and the birthplace of techno. But like also like for me, like techno, I feel is like something I'm comfortable going into close by because at least I have proximity to it through New York City. You know, and it's like if I didn't have that proximity, I might have done something else.
Okay. No, I remember learning, like I remember I was so like, what's it called when you're like, I don't know, just mind fucked. Like, are you serious? Like, what the heck? I didn't have a proper education of electronic music. So when I got, not finding out, the roots of Detroit and Chicago, and I'm like, what? This started in the United States? Like, it's crazy, But I feel like I describe it as like maybe Berlin or Europe adopted it. Like they realized it, like, hey, these guys are doing some cool music, They probably adopted it and kind of like maybe curated its.
Yeah, I've written about that. This process of shipping over records from Detroit and Chicago to Europe, especially places like Berlin after the Berlin Wall fell, like it changed the context of where that like record was pressed and how it was made and the intended audience, because of the spaces that were available in East Germany at the time. So like East Berlin had like all these empty warehouses and stuff. And so like the clubs that were built in there, like Berghain, Tresor, like these sort of like they're very cavernous, So the echo effect and the reverb and like the delay between walls and stuff, the concrete, this all plays an influence in how this song is going to be heard. The people who had access to these clubs, the DJs, and the producers, they took these original records and started making their own, but with this space in mind. So they fine-tuned the records to fit the space. Then my hypothesis or my thesis around that was that when they did that, producers around the world tried to mimic that sound. They didn't try to mimic like the original like Detroit sound. They tried to mimic that sound because that was fine-tuned. That was using like $1 million like studios. Like someone said in an interview once, there's a difference between like a Norman Nodrus record and a Jeff Mills record. And like the Jeff Mills record, there's more stuff happening in between the kick drums, and they called that noisy. And I was like, I don't really know what that is, but it feels coded.
So what did they want to like? Did they want to like clean it up or like?
Because like the space between like kick drums in like and more like one of like a Norman Nod record or any like Berghain record is like there's more space. There's less things happening in there. So the emphasis is on that kick drum. So like when you're in a club like Berghain, you feel that fucking kick drum. It's a minimalist but maximalized for large spaces.
Damn, that's crazy how like physical, like I did not even know that, like, or even knew that was even. Damn, that's crazy. That's intense.
Yeah. So like if you're playing like a Jeff Mills record in a big cavernous space like that, it's gonna take up a lot of room.
It's just gonna
it's gonna bounce off everywhere, and it's like, and some people have described that sensation as being kind of muddy, and I was just like. Like when people are like, oh, the mix is sort of muddy because there's too many instruments clashing. I was like, no, the record's fine. It's the space that needs to be changed. Like I was like, well, this record was built for an entirely like something like the Bells or UFO or something. Like those records were meant for like a totally different space. It's fun to mix those kinds of records together where you have something like ultra minimal and something ultra maximal. And then like trying to jump back and forth between those things rather than slowly build track by track by track until they reach a crescendo, and then like slowly bring it down and bring it back up. And like for me, it was just like, no, I want like high tension. I want like
from beginning
from beginning to end. I want ups and downs. I want to be on a fucking roller coaster, like so musically. I want to be taking in a lot of different directions.
And it's able and that's doable, like in a smooth. I guess kind of like, but in a smooth like manner to do that.
With finesse, you can do it. If it's very like aggressive for the sake of being aggressive, it's almost unenjoyable. But if you can do that in a really like a roller coaster kind of way, like a really smooth ride, and it really takes you somewhere, it's more memorable to me. So,
are you taking into consideration like the spaces that you're playing now? Because how you're based in Berlin. You've done New York as well too. But specifically, like I know I guess you would say your career, your persona in Berlin is very prominent. So are you taking into consideration the parties that you're playing out there? Or
I mean, it's like I'm just starting up again too. I know that a lot of people are like a lot of DJs now are like hitting the ground running and like trying to
like pre-COVID.
Exactly. They're really trying to go at it. And for me, I was just like, I want to be a little bit more considerate. I want to really focus in on the kind of crowd that I want to foster on a dance floor. So I'm also just considering like time and place, you know, like a mood and changes from place to place, and like you can sense that. So like a good example is like I saw Ariel Zatina DJ at Nowadays in New York just before I left for LA, and like it was a 7 a.m. set. The sun is out, like the sun is pouring into like the club, but there's all this fog and like there's like hundreds of bodies everywhere, and I was like, whatever she was doing was like artwork, because it was just like so bubbly and like crisp, and just like the not kind of traditional kind of like house music set that I would anticipate. It was like classical music at one point. Like I felt like I was in a spa. Like it was the most intense, beautiful thing I've ever experienced, and that just kind of is a testament to how good of a DJ she is. Yeah. So that's the kind of consideration also that I would say that you need to take in as well. Like that, it's like you can't slam someone hard techno at 7 a.m.
Okay, of course. Yeah, exactly. Well, unless like you're in a possession techno.
Yeah. I mean, unless that's the mood, unless everyone is really trying to do that. But like at that particular night and that particular party, that was not the energy. So
yeah. And you mentioned Nowadays, Unter. I know you've done stuff with Bossa Nova. Like, is there any other like, you know, parties or, you know,
in New York?
Yeah. I know Bossa Nova does you know, curates dope parties. Are there other parties that
right now I know there are a ton. I haven't played any of them. No, like I really tried to get my own party started at Bossa Nova, and then I switched it over to Mood Ring. But then like
Mood Ring is a club?
Mood Ring is a bar club that's across the street from Bossa Nova. And it's also a really cool like venue.
I've only been to Bossa Nova. I've only been to New York once, and the homie took us to Bossa Nova, and it was time, like it was a cool thing. And then come to find out, you know, how important Bossa Nova is to New York and everything.
Yeah, it's an institution now. Yeah. Like in the way that like Smart Bar, I would say, is an institution in Chicago. You know, they are constantly working on that sound system, and like they are really trying their best to like put in an audience, or both an audience and like a sound in there that really fosters like the local community. So so that for me is important.
But you've how would you describe Nowadays? Because no, wait, I went to your Instagram. Was it a Nowadays or Unter? No, it's Untermania.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you played that one as well too, right?
Yeah, that one was in a warehouse in Bushwick. Yeah, that was Unter's venue changes from place to place, so it's not always at the same. It's not always at the same spot. Makes sense. But the clubs like Nowadays and Bossa Nova, those like are there, like, and I hope that they remain there. You know. Real estate changes the city. You know, the only constant in New York City is real estate. So as long like I tell people all the time, like, please value.
Take care of like, or just
value the spaces that you have right now, because you might not have them tomorrow.
Yeah, I know in LA, a lot of like venues that warehouses were thrown at, they shut down during the pandemic as well too. Yeah. So like after, you know, like another venue down, another venue out. So it's kind of like, I was always interested, or just, you know, interested in like how the scene or how the parties in LA were going to be, you know, that was COVID and everything. But
LA seems to be wildin'. Like we were at,
you said wild.
we were at Rhonda. That was lit.
Yeah, that was fun.
Seeing Ace Moma perform was awesome. Like it's just like, they're the homies too from New York, and like that party was super lit.
And that was at Los Globos, so that's another like, you know, club that's always, or, you know, venue that's always been around and everything as well too. Maybe some of the warehouses that are maybe not, I guess.
I've been to like the 6 a.m. parties before.
Like 6 a.m. Yeah.
It's hard to break into the techno scene here in LA. Yeah.
Wait, because you've played in LA.
I've played before, but it's like there's just a lot. I feel like there's no like real club to go to. They're all warehouses. And
those are the ones that I think feel like shut down, I think, during
so it's like everything's very makeshift. But I actually was really excited the other night. I went to Atwater to see Silent Servant DJ, and I met him finally for the first time.
Was it on Thursday night?
Thursday night.
Was the night called Machine Club or something like that, maybe?
Oh, gosh.
But maybe. But I think it was. Yeah.
Yeah, no.
But how was that interaction? Because he said first time, but he's done a remix for you. So.
I know. So, like, that was set up by Sal Carlino, who's a Pileone.
Emissions Recordings. Yeah, exactly. Shout out. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Pizza King.
Sal, of course. Thank you. Sal really hooked me up with that. Like, he was like, yo, Juan's going to want to do the remix. And I was just, you know, ecstatic because I'm like, oh, God, like, that's... You know, that's a legend right there.
Right now, yes,
I got that call and I was just like, oh my God, that's huge. And then like he did that kind of thing where I was like, oh, he took everything that I did and stripped it back and then brought back that kind of like groovy techno thing that I oftentimes don't want to do with my own records because I'm like juxtaposed between like happy and sad.
Ooh, that's a good,
Yeah, like it's an anxiousness that like a kind of challenge that I like always see coming out of my music. Like, a lot of people say that my music feels kind of anxious. And so Silent Servant like took those stems and kind of like reintroduced this kind of like groove that needed to exist on the record. So I was happy that he did it. I think he did a great job. And then when I finally met him, I was like, oh my God, like it was like, he was like super sweet.
But that Emissions Recordings, that's a recent
that was
release, no?
Yeah.
And then I know you posted it because I know who also remixed your songs this past year. It was
so I got the one remix from Silent Servant, and then D Dan.
Yes. Okay, yeah.
From like the Malahunta crew in Berlin. Like he remixed the record that was on Lobster Theremin. So.
Oh, okay, yeah. Because I know you, even with during the COVID and everything, you had a nice like a good little run with releases and other stuff. So
I think like I put something out on Bandcamp called Interloper that was just sort of combination of records that never made it to like final cuts or like things that just couldn't find a home in like an album that I originally was trying to write.
Okay.
That happens a lot, that like records just don't make it or they get cannibalized and turned into something else. But for me, I was like, these tracks for me are special in ways. They remind me of like certain places and times, but never feeling like I was like they fit in.
Would you still play them out though?
Yeah. It depends on the context. Like I know like this one track called Radicalized that I like to open with because I think it's very like dark and mood setting. But then there's another track called Artificial Hells that's also like an opening track for like more of a houseier kind of night, like something weird and art house feeling, like very abstract.
And then talking about your tracks, what's the influence on the song
Bossa Bathrooms?
Yeah.
I mean, well, if you go to the bathrooms at Bossa, you'll kind of get...
That's it, just to be like...
Yeah, okay. You'll kind of get the mood of it. It's just like, there's always like a crazy line. There's 3 like stalls and the shit that goes inside them is definitely not necessarily going to the bathroom, It's like, all kinds of like shit. Like,
I'm gonna ask him like, what any cool story behind that, the name of that track. But,
I think it's just like sort of like manic, the kind of manic like 150 kind of energy that I would be at a party and like someone like Aqua or Killborn would be DJing and it's just really fast, it's really aggressive, and then it's like I'm like zooming back and forth between like the club and like the dance floor and the bathroom. Yeah, I mean that's also like homage to a time in New York that I had.
Oh, so that kind of looks back, like a little looking back on like the memories that you made in the bathrooms, or just or the journey from the bathroom to the dance floor back and forth and everything. I'll play this part. Oh,
yeah,
I love it. I'm like, I saw that. I'm like now I can ask him what's the connection or just the meaning, but you did mention Sal. How was the connection with him and Emissions Recordings?
Oh, amazing. How
did that come about?
We met I forget, I think we met in like 2017 or 2018. No, 2018 or 2019, something like that. Before I moved to LA for 6 months to just kind of work here for a little bit, and he was like really open and just really like excited about the record that I'd sent him, and which was amazing because actually when I was trying to field it to other people, nobody was interested.
Really?
Yeah. So he was just like, oh my God, this is huge and I'm gonna put it out and blah blah. And I was just sort of like, yeah, like whatever. Like I'm like another guy that's like just gassing me up for no reason. But then like the record came out and that was the Red Curtain Daybreak record, and like
that one with you even got a remix with Henning Bear, no?
Yeah, Henning was on the remix of that.
Yes.
Yeah, Henning Bear. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
No, yeah, because
he remixed this track that I did called Devil May Cry.
That one, yeah. But that's in the same
same record.
Okay, yes, okay, yeah. I thought I was mixing them up, but no. But the Red Curtain Daybreak. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's one of my favorites. Like, okay, how would you describe that sound? That synth that just kind of brings it. Almost feels like I want to listen to it like live because I think it'll just give me goosebumps and just make me want to just like put my hands up in the air and just kind of like
Yeah. So a lot of people think of trance music in bad taste, like it's sort of like this capitalist European style of music that's just like ultra cheesy. But for me, it's like I really like those synths in those records because they kind of remind me of like CJ Bolin and like this really arpeggiated kind of sound that like used to come from like super saw synth waves. I think there's a synth that works that way, like the JP 8000 or something like that. It's a Roland.
Oh.
And so like I wanted to mimic that kind of arpeggiated synth noise to kind of, you know, bring people to that kind of like when I was writing the synth line, I was like, this is high, and I'm like, what if it went faster? Like, what if it, you know? And then like when you're writing stuff like that, and you're like, okay, this brings me to some place. Then it's like, all right, cool. Then I know that I'm at the point of completion, and that record is done, and I don't need to add more to it. It already has what it needs. You know?
Yeah, that's one of my favorite records. Like I did a 6 a.m. guest mix, but I forgot what song I included. But it was one of the most at that time when I recorded it was one of the most recent ones that came out. I know it came out with music for dark.
Oh, music for playrooms.
Yeah, but it was in that record. The other song. I'm playing thought.
So that one was actually with Jack Department, and that that's like a really quiet record. I didn't actually.
Was there another song with that record though? Like,
yeah. So there's let's see. There's a song called Indoor Fish. There's a song called Never Fake It.
Never Fake It.
Yeah.
Never Fake It. Yeah. Never Fake It. Yeah.
That comes from like the bottle, the Rush bottle, like the Poppers Rush bottle. I just I was like I couldn't come up with a name, and I saw that was actually
Never
on my
Fake
table.
It. Oh shit!
Nice.
Nice. Somebody said that when when it's time to like name tracks, they kind of look around the room.
Yeah, they're like, what's around me?
No, so yeah, stuff like but clean. Now, but Never Fake It. Yeah, that's one of my favorite songs. I remember when the mix came out, and my friend sends me like stories of him playing the song. He's like, "Yo, this song." I'm like, "I know, right? This song is fire." And then I played it out at a couple parties, and it's man, for reals. That's why I can like. I'm not embarrassed to say, but you're one of my favorite artists. So it's like, legit. So it's like, even though like when I told you when I saw you at Ronda, and I'm like got starstruck. I even thought I was dreaming. I'm like, maybe I'm too lit right now. I don't know what's going on. But I'm like, no. But my friend was like, that's him. I'm like, okay, clean. But talk about your move to Berlin. So how did that come about?
Well, I needed a pension plan.
Okay.
And I knew as an artist in America, I wasn't going to get one. So, so a lot of people ask me, they're like, why'd you move to Berlin? I was like, literally, like the pension plan. Like being an artist in Europe in general is a more stable.
I was just gonna say the word stable.
Yeah,
like
there's a more stable quality of life there just because of how much money is spent on endowments and institutions.
Yeah.
So like,
yeah, right.
you know,
like the government, like even the economic, like they value the economic like nightlife of what it brings to the city.
Absolutely. Like the city of Berlin, for instance, really invests in like its nightlife culture because they understand. That,
I wanted to ask you about that.
It's a tourism factor, you know. It brings money into the city, and you know, like it's a draw. So they receive like dance music and nightlife as an institution, in the way that they would see like the arts like you know, theater, concert halls, that sort of thing. You know, so I moved to Berlin to go experience that and to try my hand at it because I knew that there was something that I needed to do. Like if I were to do this professionally and to continue to do it professionally, it's something that comes from a really place of privilege, you know. Like I at that time had just finished my master's. I had just acquired enough to get by, but like I was struggling in New York City, like just struggling to get by. And 5 years of like just busting my ass trying to make things work, and to accomplish to get like, you know, an apartment and just make sure that I had food and, you know, and like, and really just kind of like make sure that, you know, I was taken care of. Just about 10% of that hustle that I applied in New York City, like that New York City hustle, I applied 10% of that to my life in Berlin, and I got everything that I needed within 6 months. And I was just like, that is so wild.
It's a trip to be able
to be like, I'm like, I can't believe I was busting my ass this hard in New York when I was like, I stabilized so quickly in Berlin, you know, including with like, you know, the language barrier and including like with, you know, like finding apartments and stuff, because that shit is not easy. You know, when they say like New York is hard place to live, they're not joking. But it teaches you life skills that when you apply anywhere else, all of a sudden things just come easier, you know, because you know how to make shit work, you know.
Somebody was talking about how they grew up in Los Angeles, because like Los Angeles taught me, you know, how to get by or something like that, but like New York like taught me how to really like survive and really like, you know, kind of
like this girl Jubilee, she's like this phenomenal DJ. She's like bounces between Miami and New York. Like she said once that she's like, you know, some days you're eating like a $500 sushi dinner, you know, like with like mad, you know, glamorous ass people, and then like the next day you could be eating like out of a fucking can of tuna.
Top Robin or something like that.
Yeah, you're just like, you know, like, and that's just how New York is. Like, it's just like life there is always changing. It's always switching up on you, and it throws you curveballs, and you just have to learn how to deal with it. Berlin is nothing like that. Berlin is a very comfortable, quieter place, you know, like, and in a sense, it may, for me, it maybe lacks a little bit of that excitement, that oomph that I really like enjoy about like living in New York. But for what I'm getting out of it in return, it's just a stability that I've never known in my life, like ever.
Wow.
You know, like I'm gonna be 33 this year, and I've never once, while living in Berlin, worried that I didn't have food for the next day.
Oh wow.
You know what I mean? So it's like having that like hard, really cruel growing up process to getting to be comfortable in your 30s is like something that I was like, I made the right decision. Like I just didn't want to worry about my bank account anymore, you know?
I feel you. Oh man, I feel you. Man, hopefully, well, that's the thing though. That's why I have a day job and everything, you know, and then just kind of like do my stuff like that. But that makes total sense, you know, not being a struggling artist, you know, like being able to break out of that I guess label and everything as well too. But and how long have you been in Berlin?
In Berlin, I started in 2019, October 2019.
Oh, okay.
And then I came back to New York to come play some shows. I just put out a record with LD, who's another DJ and producer in New York City, on her new label called Mild Fantasy. And then, boom, the pandemic hit, and everything shut down.
Did you get stuck in New York?
Yeah, okay. I got all my flights got canceled. Jeez, I couldn't go back to Berlin. And I didn't know what I was gonna do, so
you're like, not back in New York.
Yeah, well, yeah, no, I was,
but not like that. But meaning like, because which you were already like experiencing in Berlin, like, okay, cool, there's some stability. Boom, COVID hit.
Yeah, exactly. Like all stability gone out the window. Like it's just like everyone I knew was struggling or trying to figure out what the fuck we were gonna do, you know, without getting sick.
Yeah, but also especially you know, you as an artist as well too, because I guess the full-time artists, you know, and the DJs, I feel like you guys got
that
hit.
industry disappeared overnight, and like everyone got set to zero.
Yeah, and
like, nobody like literally, got out of that. Yeah.
So that's why at that time, like I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like I have a day job that didn't shut down, so at least that kind of kept me like, okay, cool, you know. But that made me really, really see like, I don't want to say fragility of, I guess, how like, you know, entertainment, just in general entertainment, because it was just not just DJs and artists, it was the entertainment, like, you know.
Yeah, everything shut. Like people were trying to do the at home thing and like trying to DJ from
live streams
and stuff, and it lacked something, you know. And also, I hate Zoom. I have to use it for work, but like, because I also have a job as well in Berlin, working in fine art with a gallery there. But so I'm using Zoom for like international calls and people who are abroad and still haven't returned back to Berlin. But I don't like it for socializing. You know, I don't want to hang out with my friends on Zoom. I want to hang out with you in real life. You know?
And so you still haven't gone to Berlin?
No. I've already gone back. Yeah, like just before in June 2020, just before like there was an official announcement that the borders were going to be closing. I got a ticket finally back to Berlin, and I peaced out. I made my way there. It took like 24 hours, 48 hours to get back. You know, just jumping from airport to airport. But I found a way and I got back, and when I got to Berlin, it was like nothing happened. Like everyone was just out and partying. Like the clubs were closed and things were shut down, but it just felt like the numbers were so low that everyone was still kind of like not wearing masks. And like, it just was just like, I'm like, am I in the same world? Like, am I like, I was just like, cause New York was insane. Like Boston was insane. Like,
New York was intense.
Like, it was super intense. It was super scary because like, you know, the ambulances would just be all over the place, and you know, the death rate was really high, and everyone was really scared about getting sick. I was with my parents and like was like sanitizing their food as I was entering the house, because like I didn't want to get them sick. You know, and I was super scared for them. But it's tough because you're just kind of like trying to be like, all right, how do I manage?
How do I stay healthy?
How do I go outside? Like, you know, like people didn't know how to act. And then I got to Berlin, and it's like, and also it was also at the height of like the protests and the things that were happening, like in New York City, and like, and so like the George Floyd protests were happening, and so it's like I feel like I should be here. I feel like I should be like out there. But then I'm like, no, you need to, you know,
Kinda
like you need to go back to making income again, you know? And so like, otherwise you're not going to survive, and then you're not helping nobody. So, and so I got back to Germany in June, and I've been there since.
Okay.
And so this is my first time that I've been
coming
out
back and everything.
to come back home for a little bit.
Nice. And have you been? Well, you've been working on music, of course. Oh yeah. Well, I can't forget. False Boy. How did that come about, or how did you guys start? Like, you know.
I mean, me and Yulan used to spend a lot of time at Bassa.
Oh, okay.
Like just off hours. You know, we would just be there sitting at the bar, being like, "You want to make a record?" And she's like, "Yeah." And like, so we'd find some time. We'd find a studio, and then like, we haven't done it in a minute because we've been, you know, in some different parts of the world, but.
When kind of like how you said you would want to, if you're going to work on with somebody and the track going to be
like,
there.
So when we get there, it's just sort of like, bam, it happens. We wrote a few tracks together, and it was really cool. And then what we ended up doing was sort of like, we're like, well, this needs something, you know? And so like, we were like, well, we both really love dancehall, and like, you know, like, and so it's like, we got these like acapellas and stuff, Maca Diamond and like Spice. And we were just like, okay, how do we use these into these tracks? And like, we were like chopping them up until we find like the right combination, and then bam, that's it. Yeah. You know?
No, I love Skin, right? Is it Skin? Yeah. Because I saw, it's Skin. VTSS.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think she played some.
She played it, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, what song is this? And then I'm like, it's followed. I'm like, I'm not surprised. Not surprised. I'm like, it's a fire track. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm actually excited. VTSS also remixed a record of mine that's going to be out later this year.
Oh,
so,
wow.
Yeah. So I'm excited for that as well.
And how did you start feeling when, you know, artists like in like Europe, like, you know, like VTSS and, you know, Possession Techno, them like, you know, supporting you? How did that start? Like, how was your reaction to all that?
I'm excited. I'm like excited and happy, you know, to any recognition. I know obviously makes people like feel energized and like happy, but it also comes with the pressure to be like, all right, well, I need to write more. Oh. I need to produce more, and then like, you know, you have to settle down a little bit and not necessarily push yourself super hard, because you're not a machine. You know, you're a human being. Yeah. And making records, at least for me, is a really like. It's a process. It's an emotional process. It's a physical process. It's like, it takes time. And I am not the type of producer that like, you know, churns out records and like trying to like pump out hits. Like, I don't like doing that. It feels a little too robotic and doesn't feel like, and so like when I do write a record and I do feel like happy with it, it's like, okay, like give it some time and space and then come back to it.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah. No, and how did the Possession Techno come? Are you, because you're part of the roster of Possession Techno?
So there's actually an agency called Core that was this person in Paris, Matilda. She reached out to me and she's like, I'm starting an agency.
Because Possession is in Paris. Right?
Yes.
Yeah,
right.
yeah, you're right. Yeah,
and then she was like, we're starting an agency. We'd like to have you on the roster. And I was just like, that's really cool. Thank you. Like, I originally was with On the Sly and based out in Portland, Oregon. And my agent Matt was really amazing and helpful to kind of get me the very first like major gigs that I had, like South by Southwest and my first tour in the US, and like North America was like really like kind of
helped you brew
redevelop the North American connection, because I had already started doing that on my own in Europe. And then also he like launched me to like my first gigs in Asia, which was like super exciting because I had always wanted to go to like places like Korea and China and to kind of like, but it was also a huge learning experience, you know?
Like in what way? Or
it's just like, you as an American, you have all these preconceived ideas. Even if you don't think that you do, you know? You know, because the level of propaganda and American, you know, American propaganda is like it's so like insidious. It's everywhere and you don't even notice it. And so like when you go to a place like China and you realize that not everyone thinks like you, or like all the points of reference are all different, you know, then you have to completely fine tune everything that you do. So it's like I had some amazing gigs, like I played Shenzhen, and then I had like this really awesome gig in Beijing, but you know, like it was at a point where like the club was like getting shut down because the police were shutting things down like early on the street. So like I was almost like, am I fucking up because the club is almost empty? And it was like, no, it's just the nature of the thing.
So you thought like it was getting emptied out because
I thought I was fucking up, but it turns out like there was a whole police thing happening upstairs that I didn't even know anything about.
Damn.
And then like I remember I played in Korea in Seoul, and like I was kind of building up to a techno thing, and I could just sense that they were just not down. And so I was like, oh, you guys want the ghetto gothic thing. So I was like, so I had to pull back a little bit and really like retune everything, because like you can sense when the audience is not vibing with you.
But that's the job of a DJ, to be able to like, okay, like, okay, maybe that wasn't working out, but okay, I see what you're liking. I got you. Don't worry. Let me kind of bring it.
Yeah. You can't just like go in there and just be like,
play for yourself.
I'm just gonna slam at 145 and everyone is gonna enjoy it, because that's not the case all the time. It's a totally different environment, like where you're DJing for a crowd that doesn't know you versus like you're in New York City and everyone knows that you're on the lineup and stuff, and they're going there expecting an experience. Versus like a place like Cake Shop in Seoul that was just like, it's multi-level, it's all different vibes, and like people are just going to like you, they don't know you like that just yet.
So you can't really just like give them or that crazy like high tense
because they don't give a fuck. They'll just leave, like there's like okay, this like we're in
who does this person think they are, like kind of like to be able to play this hard right now, or just nah like that.
Well, I mean like Itaewon is like this big like complex of clubs and bars and nightlife. They can go wherever they want. Okay. It's like it's really it's like this whole street of just like part. It's a whole party. People are out and like drinking and just going crazy. They don't need to be at your club. Like and you have to really turn your ego down. Okay. And like really kind of be like, no, I want to give you guys a wild time. I want to show you guys something interesting. Yeah. And and that's like the learning curve that I had when we was playing in Asia. And that was really exciting, and I'm so excited to go back and do it again,
And the cool thing is that, like, having all those experiences, that makes you, develops you as an artist, as a DJ, so you can, whatever you learned out there, you can take it, back home or, New York, Have you played back in Boston or no?
Not recently.
No, honestly, like...
I was in Boston, actually, like a couple weeks ago, hanging out with Rizla and Devnal, who's another artist who's based there. And, I wrote there's a friend of mine who goes by Palm Franz as like an ambient artist, and I was also like sitting with him, and we were just like writing ambient records together. Okay. And it's like I spend a lot of time with like my friends who are still in Boston, just shooting shit and just hanging out, and then if we feel like it, like we'll talk about music and making records and stuff.
But it's just more of like just hanging out, just hey.
I mean, because they're my homies, they're my friends, they're the people that have supported me all these years. We're going on like 10 plus years of us just kind of taking music and really putting it out there. Like they were like, when you asked me like if I was ever ready to put music out, I'm like no, but they were the ones who were like, you have to put it out, pushing you to put it out. So it's like I am indebted to them to kind
that
of
support
like
system that
exactly. You need that support system to support you.
What would you say, like what are some of the best and like something good and something I guess negative that has come out of this lifestyle?
Negative, I would say the drugs. Like the drug, just ravaged me. I'm so sick of them now. Like I just like none of that. And like also the drinking too. I don't like alcohol anymore. I used to love drinking and like partying, getting fucked up. But at my age, it's less endearing. It's less cute. To be a hot mess, and I can sense that, and I'm just like, you know what? Maybe I should tone it down a little bit.
And I've noticed that like some of the most people who've been doing it for the long run, like they kind of like don't even like party like that, maybe here and once in a while, but I feel like if you're gonna do this for the long run, you do have to kind of pick and choose, what.
Yeah, like I've definitely stepped back a lot. I've cut almost all the drugs out.
But at least you had that experience, like cool, at least you're able to kind of like at least know what it is, or how it feels or whatever it is,
Yeah, I mean, I started very early, like when I was.
Well, you're 13.
I was like experimenting with all kinds of crazy shit, and then, but I think that was a big lesson to learn too, is that like people were feeding you these like things that being like, if you do drugs, you're going to be addicted, you're going to be a total mess. And that's generally not the case with everybody.
Yeah.
You know, it really depends on you as a person and what you're trying to do to medicate yourself, you know, and if you can be self-aware enough to identify that if there is a problem. And that was the thing that I felt that like things are becoming a problem and they're ruining my health, you know? So it's that recognition that something is wrong and stopping yourself before it goes too far.
How you said, like, being self-aware, but I feel like a lot of people kind of like maybe don't have that, because then it just, I've seen a lot of people get, you know, lost in the sauce.
Yeah.
So.
And it's one of those unfortunate things because, you know, you really can't police what other people do, you know, it's their bodies, you know?
Literally. Yeah. That's,
So-
I always tell people, like, look, I'm not, you know, I'm usually like, you know, everybody's entitled or free to do what they consume, what they want, you know, but just educate yourself what you are consuming, you know, and you know what could happen, what can happen, you know, just more than anything, just be educated. I think that's the best the thing. But
positive,
yeah.
I would say that the most positive thing is that I feel very satisfied about doing what I'm doing right now. I am very like emotionally satisfied about where I am in my life because I find myself always in proximity to the things that I like, which is art, you know, and music. Like art and music are like these two things that I feel need to be in close contact with at all times. Otherwise I lose my sense of self, you know? So it's always like a process of making art. It's always a process of playing music, making music, and trying to explore new areas of like my kind of like my psyche, you know? You know, because if I don't, then I feel really just like shit. And being able to work in those industries is just gratifying. And I think that was like, it's really exciting and happy, and especially how it like reaches out to other people and people really vibe with it.
Yeah.
That is also really exciting too, because that impact is like something like I think there's this artist named Thomas Hirschhorn who's like talked about this, where he's just like that point of reflection, like the piece of art or music or whatever, it needs to have this point where like you'll later on you'll remember that and you'll like have the sensation and you'll be like, oh yeah, like, you know, and like it'll and so like if you can do that with whatever it is that you're making, then you've made your impact. And like that's the kind of important thing that you can leave like as a legacy on this earth, you know?
Yeah. And how's your family, like, you know, their I guess reception to all maybe your success?
I mean, I think my relationship with my parents, like when I was a teenager, was tumultuous and violent and not understanding at all, and really informed by like Christianity and, you know, like homophobia. But now like it's a complete 180. And they are totally supportive. My mom especially is really supportive. And and she always holds it down for me, and I'm really excited to kind of be able to share that with her, you know. So that took time though.
Of course. And I think, and that's why I like to, when I hear like, you know, I guess, you know, kind of more of a happy ending, like, yes, finally, you know, like that's cool, because you know you've gone through a lot. You've gone through, you know, to, you know, you said now have that emotional content, you know, like with everything that's coming out. So I'm happy for you.
Thank you. No, like a lot of times I use cruelty or cruel as a motif, and you'll see it in some of the records that I put out. It is like a reflection of like not necessarily cruel things that have happened to me, but the sort of the cruelty of living on this earth, and like how unfair and imbalanced and how unjust society is. And so I try to reflect that as much as I can. So
I'm gonna be open with how you said that, like, okay, because I ate like a Nathan mushrooms on an empty stomach, just, you know, ate, and I was at my home by myself, you know, and then it started really like, you know, becoming overwhelming. And I remember just walking outside, I'm like, you know, I want to get some sun outside, and I remember getting very emotional, like, and almost crying, because when I had said like, oh God, no, but it was just like, you know, sitting down deep in thought and thinking about the world and thinking about like why do people have to suffer, you know, like, you know, at one point I literally tell people, like, at that moment I felt like I can feel everybody's, you know, suffering, and I was just, you know, just taking it in. And it was like, I told people it was a purge, you know, like I cried, I released my emotions, you know, I even threw up at one point, you know, just, you know, it was like an actual release of everything. So yeah, you're saying, you know, sometimes it's just, you know, maybe not something has happened to you, but just realizing that cruelty and just injustices and just unfairness sometimes happens to, you know, some of the most innocent people, you know. I was just trying to fathom like that, felt, you know, that
Yeah.
that concept of like, why does it have to happen? Like why, when people tell me like, oh, there has to be negative to be able to be able to realize what something positive is, the yin and the yang and everything. So
For sure.
It's always like that. But I remember just when you said that, I just thought about that moment too. I'm like, oh shit, I remember that time. So that was just a little open information about what I've gone through. I told people I call it the purge. That trip was intense, but then after 2 hours later, I calmed down. I was like, okay, I was just peaking. I'm like, okay, but it's still, I'm telling you, that happened years ago, and I still think about that moment, and it's ingrained in the way I, when I encounter people as well too, like so. But
cool.
But yeah, new music coming out. Before we kind of end this, I want to say, like, is there any new projects or anything like that you can talk about?
So there's one that's gonna come out on a sub label of Lobster Theremin that has a remix by VTSS. And
you said okay.
It also has a track that I worked in collaboration with this artist here in Los Angeles. Her name's Booty.
Booty?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And she's really cool. And I'm excited to kind of put this out because it'll be the last record that I put out for 2021.
Oh, okay.
Before I start working on putting out other stuff, which I don't know where those things will be. I've been working on an album, but it takes forever. Especially the way that I work,
giving it time, not trying to just pump it out.
Exactly. I really want to give this thought, especially an album takes a lot of consideration if you want to do a concept album and like where that storyline is and like really fleshing that out and like really putting out something that I can feel proud about. Isn't like all of that is important to me. So I'm just going to work on that for the remainder of the year, I guess.
Okay. And any events or any parties that...
So I'm getting back to Berlin next week, and then the week after that, 2 parties. Flash Coquette, which is a queer party in Paris, and then Possession the day after. And then the day after that is Berlin at Else Club, which is an open air club.
Oh, nice.
So the open airs have just started. And
that's going to be like,
the city is finally launching its like summer events. So, so those are 3 events that are happening coming soon. And then like in September and October, there are festivals and stuff as well. Okay. But it all is really just dependent on like the cases.
How everything, right? Because I think,
So, get vaccinated.
I know,
please.
Get healthy, people. I feel you now, man. Hopefully me and my girl can go to, Germany or Berlin and go see you one day and everything.
Yeah, the borders are officially open now for all tourists and stuff too.
Oh, right. I think was it like a rumor that they weren't going to let Americans go anywhere?
Yeah, they won't let anyone travel.
Oh man, I feel you.
I'm just lucky to be able to go back and forth because I have a visa, but like a lot of people were not. So
for the most part, yeah. Nice, man. Well, I really want to thank you so much for just allowing me to ask you a couple questions, and meeting you. It literally is a big pleasure meeting you. Like, it's an honor meeting you. Like, for us, like, your music is inspirational. Seeing you, I've been following you on the internet for a couple years and everything. So to actually like see you,
no worries,
on the dance floor, just having fun. I'm like, that's what makes when you meet one of your favorite artists, and they're just having fun. I mean, I think I was even telling you, I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't want to bother you. I'm just just want to say hi.
Yeah, it's all good.
But but you were like, no, you're good. You kept on talking to me. I'm like, oh, okay, cool, it's tight. But thank you so much for this.
Thank you for
people
with me.
Check out his his new music, or just go back to the whole his catalog. It's amazing music, so you're doing something cool, and I just wish you the best, more for more fruits.
Yeah, thank you so much, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you. But all right, everybody, this is the Be Our Normal Days False Witness episode. Thank you. Peace, y'all.
Ciao.